We've had at Deque, we've had so many different sessions about automated accessibility testing. And when I was creating this presentation, I thought, why do we need one more presentation about automated accessibility testing? And really, the reason we are doing this separate session for the government, for the 21st century government, those of you who are more agile and who are becoming more and more conversant with the lean way of doing things, we felt you need a special presentation all to yourself. And the reason being, while you have a lot of common practices with commercial entities, you do have some uniqueness with the federal environment. So I wanted to highlight that really. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is get into that. Well, yep. So firstly, let's define what we mean when we're talking about automated testing. Let's define the goal of what software quality in an agile world really means. In the old days, when I used to do testing, software testing, it used to be that we did end-to-end testing, we did functional testing, we did the whole non-functional test suite. And really, it was more about running these tests at the end of a process rather than any integration. But in an agile world, software quality, the whole definition of software quality is kind of changed. It focuses on improving the actual quality of the development process itself. And the way it does that is by improving how we develop software, how we deploy it, and how we monitor it. And the sexy word for that is DevOps, right? But really, when you're talking about Agile, it's really important because you can't do it after the fact. It's too late. And your releases are coming fast and furious, and you don't have time to go back and, I mean, you can add it to your backlog, but it's not the way to do it. So improve the process itself. See how unit testing can be a part of it. All right, some common vocabulary. Even though you are different in the government, you must be doing some flavor of Agile, whether it's Scrum. You may have product owners and a team working together to create really, well, do some planning initially. Into the planning, if you're not building a brand new product, you're going to have something called the product backlog, which is going to feed into your sprint planning. Sprints can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, but the point is that you're going to have some predefined amount of time in which you're going to do your development. And then you're going to take the stuff that is in your backlog and what comes into the backlog from your sprint planning and put it out into tasks. That becomes from your product backlog to your sprint backlog. Now, this is what you're going to be actively focusing on for the next, whatever the sprint duration is, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, okay? The development starts right there, and you have a scrum master, and then you look at the burn down chart, and you have daily stand-ups to make sure you're on track. What's really critical again is that in this 1 to 4 week sprint, you're doing all your unit testing, and most of your unit testing is actually automated. Another critical piece that people, as we talk about Agile, we forget the whole point of Agile, besides not being documentation intensive, is to have a working piece of software at all given time. So if I'm a developer and I'm working on my code and I'm going to check in my code at night, and I'm going to basically, well, check in is a very old term. I'm going to commit my code, and then I'm going to do a pull request, and then I'm going to say, go ahead and merge it into this trunk or this branch. Well, the point is that if my code breaks the code and everything else is a working piece of software, because Agile means you must have a working piece of software at all times. If it breaks it, you're going to piss off a lot of people. As a developer, I never want to do that. All right. So you're going to go through that, and you're going to have a release, and you're going to, again, continuous releases, CI, CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment. In many cases, because of all kinds of things, that's not a reality. And I know that. And then when you complete your sprint, you're going to do a retrospective and you're going to say, what did we do very well? What did we not do so well? And what can we learn? And this is not for finger pointing, blaming. The whole point of Agile is that we learn together, we are open and transparent at all times, right? So, or you may be following some other variation of this lean way of doing development. You may be doing extreme programming. And in extreme programming, I think the important thing is that you still have requirements. In Agile of any form, you will have requirements. So it's not chaos, okay? People think, oh, Agile, chaos. No, not at all. You're going to have user stories. You're going to have tasks that, take a basically requirement in Agile is you take a goal, a user goal, a goal that your customer has for your business users have for delivering government services or government, some process that you want to get out there to the public. Right now, CDC has a big task ahead of them to get the latest information about the coronavirus out to the public. So what do? You take these requirements and you put them into, stories and you then deliver them. In extreme programming, you start by writing test cases. So if you're testing for accessibility, you may integrate them into a bigger test case, but really you're going to be making sure that you have acceptance criteria defined up front and test cases built. Then you break it out into tasks, you code, you do your automated testing in that coding. And at the very end of that, you will have, again, the same thing, working piece of software at all times, okay? All right, so what I did was I looked around and saw for digital content, whether it's PDFs or the web or native mobile, what is considered best practices in the federal government. And I found this playbook. It's the Digital Services Playbook. It's great because what the US Digital Service has done is they've created 13 key plays from public and private sector. And so the purpose of this book, this playbook, is to provide best practices for building websites, mobile applications, whatever the content may be, to do it in a more user-focused way. So not the old way of doing it, we're going to go back into some back room and invent something and we hope the customers will like it. No, this is very much engaging the users and making it user-focused, right? So, and it's in the delivery of programs, as I was talking about earlier, and policy. We will review these key plays from the accessibility lens. So what are the 13 plays? Oh, okay, stay. Understand what people need. That's play number 1. Seems pretty simple. Address the whole experience from start to finish. Okay, I don't know what really, okay, seems simple again. Third one is make it simple and intuitive. Yeah, pretty important to make it customer focused. Build a service using Agile and Iterative practices. Structure budgets and contracts to support delivery. Assign one leader, that's play number 6, assign one leader and hold that person responsible and accountable. Play number 7 is you can't know it all, so bring in experienced teams to help you get to the end result. Number 8, play number 8 is choose a modern technology stack. Play number 9 is deploy in a flexible hosting environment. Play number 10 is automate testing and deployments. Play number 11 is manage security and privacy through reusable processes. And number 12, play number 12 is use data to drive decisions, which is always good, I guess. And the last one is wherever possible, default to open. So let's look at this from the accessibility lens. What's relevant? Okay, play number 1, understand what people need. Yeah, that's relevant. Play number 2, address the whole experience from start to finish. Absolutely, I think for accessibility is critical. Make it simple and intuitive, yes. Build the service, play number 4, build the service using Agile and Iterative practices, yes. For accessibility, which is all about the front end, obviously, what the user will be interacting with through their assistive technology or other devices, is the user interface. So structure budgets and contracts to support delivery. While very important for the digital playbook, I don't think for accessibility there's much I can talk about. I don't know much about it, frankly. The FAR is a complicated topic, far more knowledgeable people that need to talk about that. Okay, assign one leader and hold that person accountable, sure, but that's very generic. It's not specific to accessibility. Again, a lot of people talk about that. Bring in experienced teams, again, same thing. Play number 7, I'm not going to cover. Play number 8, choose a modern technology stack, again, very general. There are some implications to accessibility, but I'll cover that very briefly in some other play. Number 9, deploy in a flexible hosting environment, Docker, Kubernetes, all very important, we know that. Make it simple, in cloud, whether it's on-prem or off-prem, everything should be doable. The key is flexibility and a hosting environment that has a good security posture. So I'm not going to cover that. Again, important for any testing that you're doing, not just accessibility testing. The next point is automate testing and deployments. I will get into that. That's play number 10. Number 11, manage security and privacy through reusable processes. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover data-driven decisions, and I'm going to cover, wherever possible, open source, okay? Let's get into it. Play 1, understand what people need. When you're talking about applying this with the accessibility lens, you're talking about making sure you have user personas that include personas of people with disabilities, right? So I think that's really important for designers and developers, anybody, the program owners, to have empathy with the audience, because the audience that the federal government has is all citizens, right? People with disabilities, the elderly, which is very underrepresented in our design thinking and development usually. So when you include user personas, I've got an example of a person without the perception of color, okay? Color blindness is a very common problem, especially in the male population, right? I don't know what the statistics are. Some of you may know, but 1 in 5, 1 in 3, it's a high percentage of people. Here's the thing. Somebody with color blindness may not consider themselves as a person with a disability, but I think it's really important to go over the goals, go over what exactly we are trying to do. So we describe that in Deque University. We've got user personas of all kinds of people with disabilities. And I think you should really make your designers and developers well-versed with such personas. In a persona, you're going to describe the person. You must give a photograph of the person because you need to personalize it. You're going to give the goals. The person has these goals. And these are the obstacles in the case of accessibility that they're going to face. User stories can aid accessible development. So when I'm writing a user story, something like, as a US citizen, I want to complete the online form using only a keyboard so that I can get my passport, okay? That's a user story, very clear. I cannot use my mouse. So then you do usability testing with people with disabilities. I think these 3 things combined seem to be really a good way to understand what your users need. I think I was in one other session with Denis Boudreau earlier today. I'm watching all the sessions, of course, that Deque's very talented employee base are delivering and presenting. And I think, usability testing, screen reader testing is necessary but not sufficient. So that was really interesting when he made that point, but very important to get the first-hand user feedback as well. So yeah, play 1, understand what people need. Looked at it from an accessibility lens, makes sense. Play 2, address the whole experience from start to finish. I think we've often talked about in the accessibility industry, especially the digital one, that, it's very frustrating when you go through a whole process and then you are caught, like somebody with a disability, somebody using a screen reader makes the effort to go through, say, a 5-step process, and they've gone through step 1, successful, step 2, filled in a lot of their data, like first name, last name, whatever. And then screen 3, they've gone through things and selected things and put in data, time-consuming stuff. They get to the final step and they're unable to complete the transaction. So that's not addressing the experience from start to finish. Now, this experience can also be across different channels, omni-channel experiences. So you have to think about the experience from your desktop to the native mobile, to the PDF, to whatever content you're delivering. So think of it start to finish across channels and across the entire task or the goal that the user has when they come to your website. So make sure your testing tools also go through these different steps and cover the entire experience, and it's done in a reliable and repeatable fashion. Now, if you have to rely on human judgment, there's always a chance something will go wrong. So if I go and invoke every single state in a user interface on my own, I might miss something. If you have a script that you've recorded that is going to invoke everything, then you won't miss it, obviously. I mean, scripts can break, but then there are test cases to test if scripts are broken or not. So you can really make it pretty bulletproof, and I think that's really important because otherwise it's up to the humans. Like, hover. I don't always do on hover on every single element on the page, but the state may change. So you want to do that. So I went to state.gov, and the goal that I went to the state.gov website with is help. I've lost my passport. What do I do? I go to the passport section of the website and I look at the different things. At this point, I'm doing pretty well. There is some ARIA expanded attribute that's missing, but I was able to navigate this using a screen reader pretty well. So it says number 1, form, number 2, supporting documents, number 3, photo, which is the 3rd step. 4th is you got to pay up. And then 5th is finally you submit it. But I haven't come, actually, my goal was to replace a stolen passport, which wasn't as simple from this series of steps, okay? But they ask you, do you want to mail it in? Do you want to go to the post office? Or do you want to apply online for a lost passport? I found it and I said, I want to apply online. So I go in and I fill in this step everything about me, the applicant, my first name, my middle name, my last name, my suffix, my date of birth, my city of birth, country of birth, state, social security, country, other passport particulars if I have them. And I do all this work, and that's great. Pretty accessible. There's these help icons next to each form field, like state, country of birth, date of birth, even city of birth and first name. They have these mandatory things, but the date of birth has a help next to it, okay? What does that mean? That means that I should be able to go there and find it, but in this case, I can't, okay? It doesn't have that alternative text telling me it's a help. 3rd step, I've gone ahead and filled in all my information, but now what? What do I do now? And what's happening here is that I'm supposed to enter my phone number and then do next. I enter my phone number and there's an input type equal image that doesn't have an alternative text. So I really don't know what to do now. I'm kind of stopped dead in my tracks, which means this is what that previous play means, start to finish. You've got to address it for accessibility. It's all the more important. Okay, make it simple and intuitive. That sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it's very difficult to do, actually. Implications for accessibility, in my opinion, are that you have to start thinking very early on in your design process about people with disabilities. We talked about the user personas, usability testing, all of that, but why? Well, I love this quote, you can sand a table to make it smoother, but you can't sand it and turn it into a chair. So what you've designed is what it's going to be, and the design decisions are going to carry forward in code. No matter how much testing you do, if you haven't thought about people with disabilities when you're coding, it's going to be a problem. Guaranteed. The thought process needs to happen early. I've got a make it simple, okay? I was thinking about that too. Has anybody tried to have a bowl of soup with a fork? Tough to do. Much easier to do with a spoon, right? So design should think about that. If you're thinking of drinking soup, the goal is to drink soup. Your design should include a spoon and not a fork. Okay, and then to make it simple and intuitive, I think it's important to automate and test early and often, because you're going to find problems with the experience if you do that. And I mean with users, unit test, all kinds of tests, right? But do that early. Play number 4 is build the service using Agile and Iterative practices. Seems like a no-brainer, but hard to do when you're shifting from waterfall. I've had a few customers in the federal government who've said, well, we used to be Agile, but then the CIO changed or something happened, and now we're going back to waterfall. That's a tough place to be at, but you can still, no matter what the overall environment, you can still practice Agile and Iterative practices in your job. Now, here's the deal. And when I also talk to lots of people, they say, oh, we're Agile. Accessibility is the enemy of Agile. You guys slow us down. I say, I'll concur for a little bit and then I'll ask more questions. Oh, anything to do with compliance slows us down. Okay, great. That's true. But you're doing security testing, aren't you? Yeah, we have to. You're doing privacy testing? Yes, we have to. But accessibility cannot be automated. So it will slow us down. That's a myth, complete myth. Accessibility doesn't have to disrupt velocity at all. You have to shift it left, move the responsibility to design and development away from testers, and give the entire team automation so that it's easier to do. Frankly, the old paradigm, the old days really used to be about, we're going to get in a team of testers from the 508 community. Testers are in high demand. We'll have to pay them more. And all of that is true. We'll build an internal team, but it'll take time. And yet we cannot do it ourselves. I think do-it-yourself accessibility for the federal government is as important as anybody else. You may need some time to ramp on, but I think there's no substitute to bring it in-house, because you're not going to be able to scale. And if you're talking about doing it shift left in design and development, you're talking about really it's got to be ingrained. It's got to be taught. The knowledge has to be disseminated in your in-house team. And when I say in-house, I don't mean like the federal government has to hire all these people. If you do, great. If you don't, I mean system integrators, the people who are building the programs, the people who are doing the work, okay? Whether they're a system integrator, a design firm, whatever the case may be, it cannot be an afterthought. And you must be thinking, oh God, is she trying to put herself out of business? What is she talking about? Because we have a lot of great accessibility experts. No, I'm not. I think I've got a very talented set of people who've built some fantastic tools which can help you do it yourself. In fact, we've written a book on it. So our Chief Product Officer, who spoke earlier today and yesterday, Dylan Barrell, has written the book called Agile Accessibility Explained. It's got some really great practices in place that you can follow to make your own program self-sufficient. You can get it on Amazon, and there is an ISBN code over there that I'm sure when you get the slides, you'll be able to get that. But search for Agile Accessibility Explained. Here's the next point. When I'm talking about Agile and iterative practices, when you're talking about DevOps and CI/CD, and meaning you've got to build it into your pipeline, you can't have it, you want your builds actually failing when you find an accessibility defect, but you don't want to do it separately. I think this is a recent epiphany for me, because I've been in accessibility for 20 years, right? And the thinking 20 years ago, when I got into it, even 15 years ago, when I used to look at the web content accessibility guidelines of the Section 508 standards, my bar was high. I was like, oh, the high priestess of WCAG, of accessibility. Oh, you missed this checkpoint, and you missed this technique, and you missed this, and you missed that, and you've got like 30% outstanding defects. I challenge you to think about it a little bit differently, because I did. I realized this is actually, perfection is becoming the enemy of good. We're not prioritizing, we're not saying that, hey, it's okay, you'll never be 100% defect free, but you can be sure that there will be no critical or serious barriers on your website for people with disabilities, because it's about users, it's not about some theoretical stuff, right? The example that made this real for me is I was looking at a page with like one page with 500 duplicate ID errors. I realized half of those IDs didn't really mean anything or didn't do anything, would not impede me as somebody using a screen reader or a keyboard, only to have problems. And then that's when I went back to my team and I said, can you make this a little bit more fine-grained? Can you make it so that the duplicate ID issue is actually not a critical error, it's a minor error, but when it's an active element, then it's a serious error, or when it really is a problem, then it's a serious error. Well, they did that, and I think that's exactly what I'm talking about. If I had given a list of 500 duplicate IDs for developers to fix, they would have looked at me like this, get away, accessibility woman. But now, when I went back to them and I said, oh, there are only 3 IDs that you need to fix, that's an easy enough job to do. Sure, take it, fix it, check it in, or commit your code. And as always, time is the challenge. We know that. Play 6. I'm skipping play 5. Remember, I'm not a FAR person. I know nothing about the federal acquisition regulations or how to help. So assign one leader and hold that person accountable. I thought of skipping it. I cut it out, but then I reinserted it. I'll tell you why. Because product owners, in terms of accessibility, are the ones who need to put in the definition of done. And this relates to the previous slide that I had when I said don't aim for perfection, okay? So the definition of done has to be written for every user story by the product owner. And one thing that I think you have to remember, that Agile people are really allies of accessibility folks. And the reason for that is because Agile had to go through a very similar culture transformation and still is. They're dealing with some of the same challenges you as an accessibility owner are dealing with or have dealt with. Meaning they had to go and push against the culture of waterfall and say, no, this is better, this is better. Well, accessibility is better because it's going to make your product more usable across the board. I mean, people say that, but you should try it. I mean, it's just so much better. In fact, we've got a website that Harris, one of our developers for our apps beta product, was using. We'll send it out. It's broken-deque-workshop.netlify.com. And you can see it. You can see the experience you have with the broken one and the fixed one. vastly superior for every user, the fixed one. And all we've done is taken the broken accessibility one and fixed the accessibility defects. It looks identical, the structure is identical, but you can see how the experience is improved, in my opinion. Yeah. Well, another job that the product owner does have, the reason I went back to the product owner is because I think it was yesterday in my trend presentation, which is the first presentation at CSUN from the Deque suite, I got a question from the audience that said, well, can you have beautiful looking websites? You know, accessibility, doesn't it mean that you have to have ugly websites? That was the question. Doesn't accessibility mean that you have to have ugly websites? Well, God, I thought I'd dispelled that myth. I looked away from the camera. I did a quick eye roll and looked back, pretending, yeah, that's a question. That's a valid question, of course. But I think that is a myth that is still there in developers and designers, especially. So it's the product owner's job to debunk that myth. I mean, we've got a patent library, Cauldron. I've never seen a more beautiful looking library. That's my slight bias there, but check it out. Cauldron is a great example to give to your product owners to say, hey, no, it doesn't have to be ugly. And then the final thing, I think product owners should seek every opportunity to educate people about accessibility and create empathy in their teams. This was another soapbox that I've been on for a while, and I'm very happy it's now a reality. We've created, videos for testers and videos for developers are forthcoming in Deque University, which are going to be like, the goal was less than 5 minutes, tell me what to do. So that's what we, if you have Deque University, that's available to you today. And it's really a fantastic resource because you can educate in bite-sized chunks. Empathy, it's so important. If you don't know what a person with a disability really has to go through in order to overcome the obstacles because of your coding, you gotta code just a little bit more, spend a little bit more time to make the experience great for somebody with a disability. And the best way to create empathy, in my opinion, is to get in a usability test, get your developers to watch that. Watch how somebody with a disability struggles with an application that you have coded, that they have coded. They'll get it right away. And very often they'll go back and fix it right away because they hate. What do developers live for? They want the most number of people using what they've created. More than money, lots of surveys out there. More than anything, that's what they want. So when they see somebody struggle it really gets to them. We also have the empathy lab, which you can go to different stations and simulate disabilities. You can also make people watch virtual reality movies. So there are different options for you to create empathy, but product owners have to create that empathy in their team because it's a continuous activity, not one and done. Play number 7, bring in experienced teams. Well, this does sound a little bit self-serving perhaps, but not at all, actually. Here's the fact. There are so many open positions for accessibility experts right now that they're very scarce resources, and they're very much in demand. Accessibility coaches, which is very similar to an Agile coach, can help you fast track your accessibility program. And for example, an accessibility coach can help incorporate user stories, design best practices, testing into your dev process, add acceptance criteria. The thing that somebody wants to know, a developer wants to know, how do I know I'm done with this user story? You didn't put any accessibility requirements or acceptance criteria in there. If you do that, they're happy, they know when they're done. The accessibility coaches who are experts, who've done this multiple times, will also be able to guide you when to bring in testing, accessibility testing into your CI/CD pipeline, and what to do with it. What happens when you get an accessibility defect? Do you want to go and break your build right away? No, maybe not. If everybody is committing code that has accessibility defects and you decide to come down heavy and be a heavy, everybody's builds are going to be breaking and you're going to have some outrage. Do it slowly. Give them, on-ramp before you do that. So these accessibility coaches who have done this with many customers can bring their best practices and teach you rather than you having to learn the hard lessons yourself. We talk about automation. Deque is all about automation. We are always pushing the envelope for automation, doing more and more. We've just released some machine learning algorithms using computer vision, very neat stuff. I think it was demonstrated earlier. Happy to show it to you if you're interested. A real, thoughtful way of doing it, because we took our intelligent guided testing and we said, how can we streamline it? We still need a human, not 100%, but we can make the work effort 30% of what it used to be, 40% of what it used to be, cut it in half or less, And that efficiency means that your teams will be able to do the necessary manual testing that they have to do in addition to the automation, but do it in a fraction of the time, which is going to help your releases get to market faster. So now, I said, I keep thinking, with our development, I want accessibility testing to be done every single time. We got to eat our own dog food and we got to do it efficiently. We got to meet these deadlines and, time to market, all of that. So what I've done, I think what I challenged my team to do, and they have come up with this method of being able to write custom rules and custom assertions and tests to give you 100% coverage, automated coverage, specific to the system under test for accessibility testing. But it's got to be maintained, right? So this is not a one and done. So you may choose to do, I don't know, if things change very frequently, 70%, 80% may be enough. You don't want to write these custom assertions and tests for things that are changing all the time. You want to do it in a thoughtful way. And again, the coaches can help you decide that. Play 8. Choose a modern technology stack. So I think, we just whatever testing frameworks you're using, whatever CI/CD pipeline you're using, your automated testing should fit right in. It shouldn't have to be work. The other piece I cannot accentuate enough or emphasize enough, and I know anybody who knows me knows I've been saying this for a very long time, false positives have a hidden cost. They have the cost of a developer losing trust. And if a developer loses trust in a tool, it's going to be very difficult to get them to try it again. And a false positive is the worst thing that you can get because you spend time on fixing something that didn't matter in the first place. That was not an error, not a defect, okay? And it also causes a lot of back and forth with testers. So be very careful about what you report. And again, some progress is better than no progress, because what happens is when you give the entire, and we saw this with our product Assure, right? We had to go back and streamline it. The reason was, we used to go and say 66 manual checkpoints, okay? And people would say, whoa, that's overwhelming. We'll never get this done, especially in an Agile environment, never completed. So we created smoke tests, we created critical, serious issues so that you could streamline the manual testing as well. I'm showing the Axe beta, which is again intended to fit into your modern technology stack. It's free, it's no charge, and you can start using it right now. And it's got some fantastic guided tests. If you want to learn more, happy to share more. But for example, a keyboard test. You can do a keyboard test, which is a very tedious test. You have to go tab, 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 shift, tab in every single focusable element on a page for a web page. This will automatically go and do all of that calculation and then tell you, give you some guidance on how to streamline that testing. It saves a ton of time. All right, so play 10, automate testing and deployments. This is very important to me. And I want to do a time check, Laura. Keep me honest. How much time do I have?
Have 15 more minutes left.
Okay, so I'm going to quit in 5 minutes so we have time for Q&A, right?
Great.
Okay, great. Although I only see one question, so maybe. Okay, accessibility testing. It must be fast and easy. Okay, so you have a choice. Think of it as two different dimensions, but you have a choice. And I want you to think hard about this. Are you going to go down the easy spectrum and get greater adoption by your developers? Or are you going to go to the comprehensive spectrum and get maybe 1% of your developers, a very small, narrow set of your developers to adopt accessibility testing? I think a breadth first rather than a depth first approach is going to be more successful. And I've seen this over and over again. I failed at this many times where I said depth first, all coverage. So I had to rethink my way of doing things, and I have seen much greater success in large organizations with doing actually breadth first, little bit at a time. Keep increasing it. I'm not saying stop, I'm saying add to it, but do it in a digestible piece. I've talked about must not be noisy, very important, consistent and reliable. Okay, what happens if I do a test and another tester does a test later of the same component and gives you different errors? I gave you the initial set of defects and then somebody does validation and gives you a different set of defects. That is going to turn you off and you won't know what to trust, what is what. Why didn't you tell me this before? And then rules, you gotta stop arguing about accessibility. Rules is the only advice I can give you. We've done this for so long. I wish we would focus on simply saying that, the rules are open, million eyeballs, a lot of contributors, a lot of great thinkers in accessibility, like, Shadis of the world, being able to review it, that gives it a great amount of credibility, I think, and you can stop. Again, fast and easy, fast and easy. Everybody wants fast and easy, okay? And Axe has 30 million downloads, so I think it is fast and easy. You just have to have your developer hit analyze. That's it. Analyze, at least get that coverage. It shouldn't have to be heavy lifting. Can I make that point again? Okay, automated testing, fast and easy. I'm going to make that point again. But then what can we do with Axe? Pre-built accessibility tests, incorporate, analyze using your browser, in your CI/CD with a pipeline, into your Selenium scripts, whatever scripts you have. You can use an accessibility automation tool to use the Axe functionality. You can set up a test fixture, and if everything runs well, if the result violations length is 0, you can actually be done. That's the place that you want to get to. But there's not much you have to do. Actually put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code to have the API test everything every single time you check or commit your code. There's a hashtag on Twitter called AxeClean. Hashtag AxeClean. We encourage you to use it. No code merges until AxeClean. What does that mean? The bar is so low. It's so easy. Why should you not get rid of, by coverage, 50% of your defects? Not by WCAG coverage, but by code. The number of defects on an average amount, we've done many studies, 50% of them can be caught in most cases with Axe. All right, this is a slide that Dylan loves to talk to, that no matter what you do with axe testing, the meaning is still something that human beings have to interpret. There's an image of a woman standing in a headscarf, and the caption says, woman with a cell phone in her hand. She's got her hands folded. She doesn't have a cell phone in her hand. So a human being needs to be able to interpret meaning always. Starting with design, you're going to have to mock up your design so you pass it on. But that's where the meaning comes in. The meaning that was not present in the previous image that I showed you is meaning that you have to build into your prototypes, into your mock-ups, into whatever that you're doing. And for example, in this, I've got a recipe card up. It's a demo site that we've built. In the recipe card, there's a little icon with a pencil in it that says, on click, evokes edit modal. But what's important is that it says the accessible name for this little button ought to be edit, appended by the recipe name, because edit is not good enough. You're going to hear edit, 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 right? If you've got 6 recipes on that page, you're going to hear edit, 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 edit. So you want to qualify that. Those are the kind of choices, meaning that I think only human beings at this time can give. You can take the design annotations and encode them into tests, automated tests, which is what we encourage people to do. For example, the same check edit buttons text, what you would do is say, firstly, get the button, the edit button, and then make sure there is a heading there that get the 2 elements accessible names. What are they? And see if they're right. Compare them to what you're expecting to what you got. In this case, it's going to fail the test. Expect button text is going to be what the designer said. Edit recipe name. But what we get back from the actual heading is completely wrong. It's just saying edit, so it's going to fail. In this case, we are testing the keyboard navigation. We are actually looking at tabbing forward or going forward and back. So we are simulating the wrap around at the beginning of the page to go to the end and vice versa. Wrap around from the end to go to the beginning. So you can get the active element and you can simulate the keystroke, key down stroke, and then you can go through and see if the active element actually does the right keyboard behavior. Again, tests that can be written custom for your widget. This is for our component. Of course, I'm going to have a coughing fit and then great time to open it up to questions. Manage, okay, play 11 in the digital services playbook. For those of you who are influencers in the federal government, please go back and tell them to add accessibility to play 11. It says, manage security and privacy through reusable processes. No mention of accessibility. What? Come on. Use data to drive decisions. Can't see the forest for the trees. I have spent a career in accessibility where big trees, tree full of, pod of reports would land at the desk and you would be like, oh, wow, what is that? I don't know what it means. We decided to focus on giving you dashboards that really boils the ocean down, and you can manage risk. Accessibility is a risk, but it's also a great thing to do. So both of those things, you can really enhance the quality of your applications by getting real data. And providing the Agile team a way to be able to address the blockers first, the easy, low-hanging fruit first. You can give components, you can, say business unit, component, developer. You can slice and dice this data any which way you want. We also have a service where we say, why the change? Okay, your violations have gone up by, like there's a peak, a spike up here. Why? Did the page change? Did you add more pages? So we have the capability to give you those additional insights as a service. All right, questions?
Awesome. Great job, Preety.
Thank you.
Let me start with the questions I see in Q&A. But yeah, as a reminder, please put your questions in chat and Q&A, and I'll give those to Preety. The first one asks, is there any resources available to showcase the usage of websites before and after implementing accessibility?
I'm sorry, are there any what?
Resources or examples.
We can definitely send you some. That's the website I was talking about, before and after. One of the websites that we have plenty. We have some in Deque University, very good samples of before and after code by Section 508 and Work Act checkpoints, or we've got them as an aggregate website that we use for illustrating concepts, and we've got this demo website which is made out of very modern looking React components. And we have the whole Cauldron library, which tells you how you should code. And that's open source too.
Yep. And I put those links in the chat for those who want to check those out.
Thank you.
And the next question asks, what does Deque offer to teams in a government setting that makes it possible for them to share their learnings and best practices?
You know, that's a great question. I think it's a multifaceted, we are planning to start a government's user group. We have one in the Fortune 500s, and we have found the sharing that happens in that user group is amazing. We just facilitate. We are not trying to push anything on anybody. We're facilitating, but the conversations that have happened there are amazing. The lessons learned are best learned across your community. We can facilitate that. And so that's what we're planning to do. I hope that addressed the question.
Yep, great.
Besides a lot of webinars and blogs and white papers that you can go to our website for.
Yes, and feel free to email me if you have any webinar topics that you'd like to see. I help run those at Deque, and we always love doing that for the federal government.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to do one last call for chat questions or Q&A questions. I think, Preety, this is a good sign. That means you gave a lot of really great information. And
or maybe a bad sign, maybe. We'll find out. I hope this was useful, though.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. If you do have questions, feel free to email me. As a reminder, you'll get the recording and slides next week and the transcripts. So I'll be following up via email. Thank you, everybody.